Gender equality. Let's look at what Indian tradition has to say about gender equality. According to the Indian view of reality, life, and existence, a human individual is first and foremost a spark of the divine, a portion of the divine. And this term that is often used is Atman, which is often translated into English as self. That true innermost self, that Atman, is the true being of the individual, which is covered or veiled in the outer instruments of life, mind, and body. In Sri Aurobindo's integral terminology, integral yoga terminology, we call it physical, which is body, vital, which is the life plane and the emotional plane, and mind, that is the mental part of the being. These are the outer instruments of the being, and the true innermost being is what actually characterizes the true personality of the individual. At that level of the true being, there is an essential equality between man and woman, between genders. So with this idea, we have to look at how in Indian cultural view of life and social individual life both, what is the right way to understand this topic of gender equality. There is a particular shloka, a mantra in one of the Upanishads, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, where this idea of essential equality is described in a beautiful way, and this was also translated by Sri Aurobindo. And there is another beautiful description in another Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where it's told as a story a little bit, where that the one supreme existence was alone, and one day that existence got bored of being alone. It desired a playmate, and it brooded on itself, and as a result it expanded itself and became two halves of the same one half a man, one half a woman. And then the whole manifestation, the whole creation, the whole Srishti began. So these kinds of stories, these kinds of descriptions in our ancient texts describe us that our seers were very cognizant of the fact that these two, man and women, are not only essentially equal, but essentially one. Two halves, or two, we can even say two manifestations of the one. So how can there be any inequality in this worldview? Now, this is not to say that we don't see inequality in our society, in our modern life, whether it is workplace or in educational settings or even at home, to be very honest. All that, if we look at in the light of this essential worldview that has been given to us by our ancestors, all that becomes falsehood. All that comes from a place of ignorance. All that has to be eventually phased out, so that you and I individually first have to begin to realize that essential oneness within. So we begin to lose the sense of inequality, the sense of difference between one another. So this is, there is this beautiful essential oneness that we have been given, and there is this outer reality where we are nowhere living in that kind of sense of equality or sense of oneness. So we have to bridge the gap. How do we bridge this gap? Generally what happens is people think that this is a social issue, merely a social issue. Gender inequality is merely a social issue. But the mother, who was the spiritual collaborator of Sri Aurobindo, once said something very radically true, which is that the problem of feminism, she said, these are her more or less exact words, the problem of feminism, like all other problems of the world, she said, is essentially a spiritual problem. How is it a spiritual problem? Because spiritually we are not able to identify with that oneness within, with that essence within, in which once having realized that the distinction between me and the other person will disappear, the distinction between man and woman will disappear. So in this series of videos, that's what we will try to take a look at, to understand the problem of gender inequality from a consciousness-based perspective, from the perspective of Indian tradition, through examples, and also take a look at what was the situation in ancient India. When did the decline in the status of women begin to happen? Why it began to happen? And what do we need to do to work towards the future? So to address these kinds of challenges. We will also look at, the two ideas that are often associated with feminism or gender related issues are the two ideals or values of equality and freedom. But are there additional values that we can introduce in an emerging model of Indian view of feminism? What are those different new values that can be added? So these are some of the questions that we'll be taking up in the videos to follow. So stay tuned. Thank you.